brilliant. I always think that all of us gathering is a wonderful, wonderful thing, because we've got the title of this is Life as a Meditation, or meditation in daily life and stillness in action. But really and truly it is recognising that being here now, there are no problems. So if we're absolutely here and we're absolutely in the present moment, there cannot be any problems. And actually from that moment, as the Buddha said, 3,000 possibilities can emerge, and we have the pure potential of creativity and not caught in all of the dramas and stresses and things of life. And downstairs, I was just sitting with an Adi waiting to greet and meet and all the lovely things and drink the lovely lassi I just had. And there was a sign and it said, there's no place like Om. And of course there isn't, because Om, the sound of Om, is the sound of the universe. If we could hear the universe, we'd be able to hear the sound of Om. And also it is, we're all born of consciousness, God, love, whatever we want to call it. And there is no separation. There isn't any separation between us. And by us gathering together like this and experiencing now and here in the absolute moment, here, not time and place, not not omnom as such, but here, just here, because we've never not been here. We've always been here. We've always had the faceless, formless essence of our being. So when we connect to our essence, even though we obviously have a body and a personality and a life and an action and the things we do, when we're in touch with our essence at the very deepest core of our being and we experience that, we know there's no separation. We know that we are all part of the whole, and that actually we're the waves on the ocean. And as Rumi said, we're not a drop in the ocean, we are the ocean in one drop. And so therefore that's why we're going to start with Omming, because in the sound of Om that comes up from the tummy, Om, and then comes up to the heart, Om, and through the third eye, we have that lovely vibration that connects us all and makes us recognize our wholeness, our oneness. The sound of Om is the sound of the universe and the sound of creation. And were we to hear the universe, we would hear this sound of Om. And if we are, the wonderful thing about dropping into the Om sound is it allows us to have that experience of being here. And then it is a place where we can clear all the stress, all the trauma, all the just day by day stuff. So that's why we're going to now start this session with the sound of Om, because from that place, when we experience that essence, that stillness, then, as we were saying, the whole of this session is about life as a meditation on the move, and also that if we can practice meditation, there can be no problems. If we're in the present moment and we're in the here and now, then there is no problems. And from that present moment, all possibilities, the Buddha said there are 3,000 possibilities in every single moment. So the more we're able to be here and now, the more we recognize that there is no separation between us, and that actually all of us are a reflection of one another. And so it allows us to have the harmony that is the essence of our being, and actually the truth of relationship. Really and truly, there doesn't have to be any disharmony, and that the conflict and the distress that we see around us in daily life is the aberration. And actually being able to be present, full of love, awareness, compassion is the true state of all of us. And that's why we're starting with the session with the sound of Om. Because as I said, downstairs is a sign that says there's no place like Om. And Om is the place where we will connect with one another, be at ease with one another. And during the day in our daily life, just being able to drop into the sound of the Om, Om, and feel the vibration through your body. It can, even in a day full of things happening and maybe stress and maybe somebody not doing what you want them to do, you can bring yourself back to the center point. And in that center point, you come back to the present moment, and in the present moment, all is well. So, with the sound of Om, we'll all do it at our own pace, and we'll do it for 10 whole minutes. And if you don't want to chant, you just listen. If you want to lie down, you can lie down. If you want to stand, you can do anything you want. I have no rules. But we will begin, as always, with 3 conscious breaths. And when I say a conscious breath, we breathe deep into our tummy. It's the Ujjayi yoga breath. We breathe into, and it's called the victorious breath. We breathe into our tummy, and we breathe out. And in the out breath, at the bottom of the out breath, there is a space. And that's the space where we can experience ourselves, know ourselves, the space of all pervading truth. So we're going to do 3 of those, and then we're going to om for 10 whole minutes, although I haven't got a timepiece, so I will no doubt, Anadi is my timepiece, no, Jane is my timepiece. I have a timepiece. So take a nice deep breath into your tummy, then we breathe out. And then breathing in. Breathe in. And then, as I say, we just go at your own pace with the om. So it's Namaste is, I honour the spirit in you, that is the spirit in me. And that is the wonderful thing, as we were saying, there isn't any separation between us all. And that conflict within ourselves and within external circumstances, people, is the aberration. And that actual harmony, ease, joy, communication, love, that is the natural state. Now, it doesn't necessarily look like that when we look out at the world, or even in small groups, or even families, but that is our natural state. Our natural state is to be at ease and experiencing the oneness and the wholeness, and that's why the chant Om is something that allows us to just feel that lack of separation, or rather that there is no separation, no lack about it, and to feel that awareness. So that's why I like to start, not all of my sessions with an Om, but when there's, you know, the awareness that it allows us to experience, as I said at the beginning, that Rumi said, we're not a drop in the ocean, we're all an ocean in one drop, and we're all an expression of that consciousness, that God, that love, whatever people want to perceive it to be. And I was reflecting that, you know, life is a meditation, being here, being present. Why? Why do you want to be here, be present? And in essence, it's just because it feels better. There's no other reason. There's many people who live this life out and probably are never present, and actually are quite enjoying, or totally enjoying, the identification with their mind and identification with all of the things that make up their life, and they're having a nice time, and there isn't actually any reason for people to want to experience the presence and the awareness that comes with being here. But in truth, it is the place of the greatest ease. And if anybody properly does experience knowing themselves, their true selves, their essence, that they are awareness, that they are all that is and ever was and ever will be, that they are part of the whole, there can be no thing or nothing that is more easeful and joyful and vibrant and never ending than that sense. So that's why, and anybody who is here is experiencing or exploring that, and even if people are new to meditation or new to the concept, then generally if they've kind of arrived in a room with people talking about meditation, something in their being is experiencing a pull towards it. And so awareness is the part that is always watching. So when we speak about, you know, my body, whose body? And when we talk about anything as separate to ourselves, then obviously that indicates that we have an I below the I. So we have the personality that is, you know, we all have a personality, we all have a different energy, we're all out in the world kind of doing things. But of course we are human doings a lot, but actually we're human beings. And therefore to really drop into the being place. And then, of course, that brings us into the stillness and being in action in the stillness. So in meditation, often if we sit together and we will chant Om together, or we'll join together and practice meditation, which many of you have with me, then, or, you know, go and sit on a mountainside or be in nature, all many places where we'll experience that stillness and that essence of ourselves, and we can drop into it. And I think many people will experience that even if they're not interested in meditation. They'll go and stand with a beautiful view, or a sunset or a sunrise, or a, you know, a seascape or anywhere, and they'll feel so people will experience it, and often they'll experience it, you know, the joy of something. When they fall in love, when a baby's born, there are a lot of times when humans drop into that wonder and that awareness. But ultimately what I teach is to have stillness in action. In, oh, do you want to come in? No? Then you've just waving. I wasn't sure. There's some people who say they're going to come in and out, but we don't know. At the moment they're standing outside the door. Anyway, yeah, they'll have that wonder and that experience. I think being in love is one of the most biggest places people experience it. When they first fall in love with somebody, they can experience something, you know, bigger. And often, because people aren't aware of how to know themselves at that level, and I've obviously, as you, or most of you know, I've worked in relationship therapy for years. And unfortunately, what often happens is that romantic phase ends, and then a power struggle begins, because people haven't got the awareness of how to be in that meditative state and be clearing all of the stuff that isn't their true self. And then a struggle can start, and that's where the conflict begins. So it is recognizing that the stillness in action, it's called in Taoism, Taoist philosophy is about the universe is all energy, and we want to work in harmony with that energy. And the Taoist philosophy calls it Wu Wei, and it is stillness in action. And many of you know that I'm a runner. I think it's kind of common knowledge that I've run for my whole life. And right from years ago, and I've run at the top level, as you know, back in the 80s, back in history books. I remember Jamie doing you did a history project on the 70s. Do you remember that? I remember that.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, I do remember, and I remember going, a history project on the 70s. Because I was born in 1959, and I was running through the 80s at top level. And that was for me the best place, because I've always been on this path of stillness in action. I've always been part of what could loosely be termed a spiritual path. I've always known that the thing that I really knew I'd come to do was to be able to shine my spirit through this body and through this mind. And that the place I found it hardest in the 80s was in my running, because my ego got caught up with performance. My ego got caught up with chasing times. And so it was a cycle that showed me spiritually where I wasn't still, and it would happen, and I'd be still, and then I'd be in what's called the zone in sport, and I'd be completely with the essence coming through me, and they say that's genius, you know, when it's coming through you. And I wasn't present, I wasn't there. I ran some of my best runs in that state, where my body was doing its thing and it knew what to do, but I got out of the way. And I think that it's us getting out of the way of ourselves. So that's where we get the two things of the true essence of who we truly are, And then we've got the ego personality that can get caught up and actually can often spoil it all. And without question, my ego spoilt often my performances rather than enhance them. When I got out of the way of myself, I experienced that zone. I experienced that stillness in action, the Wu way. And it doesn't, obviously running's my thing, but it's in everything. It's in absolutely everything. And it's in our relationships, it's in our, our day-by-day life, it's in our admin. If we're caught in the stress of got to do, whereas if we come back to now, we might have the practical application of making a to-do list or any of the things that are useful to function as a human. We obviously do have certain things to do, but if we're doing them from a place of stillness, then we are never ever stressed. Stress isn't necessary. Now I know that we again live in a time of where it's talked about endlessly, but it's a response to a situation. It isn't stress is those are stressors, but one person can get upset because they can't find a parking place. Another person, that's easy. Another person can get stressed speaking in front of an audience. It's easy for others. So therefore it shows it's not the situation, it's the person. And so it's always recognizing that it isn't the external thing, it's always to do with us. And also everything's to do with us. There's no, conflict is always, inner or outer conflict is always inner, because, or inner or outer attack is always actually inner. But again, I could talk for ages, I must get off my route. So it is recognizing that, as I said, so let's assume we all do want to be here now. And here, I don't mean here as in omnom, or even in this room, I mean here. And here is, we've never not been here. Our essence of our being, our very, we've always existed, the faceless, formless essence of our being. So it's being able to experience the here, which is timeless, and therefore the now, which is timeless. And therefore it's not a brain concept, which is why this kind of meditation is experiential rather than something that you can have as a theory. Because yes, of course I teach you how to do it, but actually it's an experience. And the being here and being now needs to be all the time. So the only purpose, we're going to do some meditation practices, which Kathy's really looking forward, in particular to the Hara breathing, I believe. She doesn't really like it very much, and no one has to do anything they don't want. You can all just, it'll just be me. I can see this. It will be an entertaining spectacle for anyone who doesn't. No one has to do anything. But I am going to do some experiential things. So meditations practices, whether it's breath work, chanting, all the things we're going to be doing, shaking, they're all useful because they can bring you back to here and now. But they're only practices that are to help you do it all the time. And with all these things, the practices are wonderful and often useful, but because of the human mind, and it is a bit bonkers, the human mind, it's amazing, amazing tool, but left to its own devices, it just goes off. But because of that, people often do meditation and tick it off. So, right, what have I got on my list today? Right, tick the meditation off and then tear into their to-do list with great furor. And of course, there's no meditation in there at all, but they've ticked off the thing. So it's about the meditation is only the practice to help you be here and be now at all times. And there is a saying that, once you've rode the raft across the river, you don't need the raft anymore. So really, ideally, you're never going to need meditation practices unless they're fun. It's very lovely to chant together, it's very lovely to breathe together, to be together. And so they're enjoyable, but it gets to the point you don't need them. Because really, being here and now, is recognizing that our past is ultimately really only to inform us. And it's like the wake of a boat, really. Now, of course, again, we're in a society where there's a lot of made about making memories and all of this stuff, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with memories or calling them up when we fancy, but we don't want to be stuck in them. And obviously my work in people's lives is to help heal them from a lot of trauma from childhood. Generally, that's where our wounding happens, but also that can repeat itself in cycles. So ultimately, I'm helping people to heal the past to such an extent that it's not relevant. Now, it's still a story, like I can tell the story of running fast, I can tell all sorts of stories, you know, long time I've been on this planet, so, and they're quite fun, and it's nice to call a story up, but they're not actually relevant. If we think our past needs to be like the wake of a boat, and I don't know how many of you have seen The Matrix? Anyone seen The Matrix? No, but in The Matrix there's a bit, there's a bit where Neo says, that's where I used to have breakfast, it never happened. And that's the bit, and if we're really freeing ourselves from the past, when we go back into places, we don't have that nostalgia, and we don't have that you know, bit that's still caught there. So really the past is to inform us. Again, any of these ideas you can take or leave, of course, and the future's an illusion. So of course, until it, you know, we're making the future now in this moment. So of course it's fun to plan the future, it's fun to creatively, you know, explore and create from a place here now with the 3,000 possibilities. But it isn't something that we need to worry about. And of course what takes us away from here and now is people regretting the past or caught in the past, excuse me, or worrying about the future or attached to a future outcome. And that is where being one of the biggest things that I learned, and again, running was a great metaphor and a great teacher for me, is not to be attached to the outcome. And that is a very often difficult for people to learn, but life-changing. Because unfortunately, again, in society tends to go, right, now you've got to get your stats or whatever it is now, and then you've got to get your 11 plus, and oh God, now you've got to do your GCSEs, and then you've got to do your A-levels, and then you've got to do university, and then you've got to do a job, and then you've got to do another job, and then you've got to do a better job, and you've got to get married and have some children, and you've got to, and there's a great pressure, in our education system, and then you die. And so, but we can, now there's nothing wrong with getting the A-levels and jobs and achievements, it's absolutely fun, but it should be fun. And I, obviously, again, I've been in front of people for 47 years, and I've seen a lot of people not finding it fun and doing incredible things and amazing achievements and things that everybody's going, oh, that's amazing, but they're not having fun. And really, we're here to have fun. Now, as I say, having great achievements can be the most amazing fun. So I'm certainly not saying we don't look for those things, but do it in meditation, do it with stillness, do it in, you know, stillness in action. It makes such a change, and it's such an incredible, it makes life fun and joyous, and you can stay useful and enjoying life. And something I said, actually, Jamie, I must tell you this. I was saying this to one of my clients, that one of the things I think, and he's coming to see you, I think, but you're amazing at what you do. But one of the things I notice about you is you have no ageism. Because Jamie, I've used Jamie. Jamie's skills are awesome, as Kathy knows, but I've used him for my flexibility and my sciatica, which I have worked with over 40 years. But he has no ageism at all. And that's because when you're 65, it's quite interesting, because I feel I'm a youthful, ever vibrant, you know, ageless person. But people, you do have an attitude of it for out in the world, and people thinking that it's over, really, oh well, what you're doing is just not that important really, because it's all, you've done your life, haven't you? And that is an attitude. Now, I don't obviously adhere to that because I do whatever, but Jamie hasn't got that in your being at all. And so it's about now, it's about being where we are and not getting caught up with all the mental scripts, because generally by the age of 35, it's said, I mean, in my Imago training, the Imago is the relationship training, they would say that you often make choices of a partner 90% unconsciously, because there's so many deeper stuff going on. For instance, all the childhood wounding, lots of stuff that, you know, parts of yourself that had to be hidden away to survive in your family or weren't given permission. And then when you meet a partner, there's often a lot of, you know, the falling in love stage is a stage where often your unconscious goes, this time I'm going to get my needs met, because you know, perhaps you weren't heard as a child, or you weren't given enough love, or all sorts of things. But ultimately, that's why people choose their partners unconsciously. But with conscious relating, if they become aware of this, they can actually have it as a great place of healing, because the stuff inevitably comes up. So it is being aware that generally, by the time, again, just in normal life, by the time people are 35, they're often living their lives 90% unconsciously. They're living out of the scripts of their childhood, the childhood belief systems, the family beliefs, the educational beliefs, the social beliefs, and as well as that, they're living out of the identifications that have been put onto them and they've taken up, you know, whether they're meant to be achieving in whatever area of life, dependent on their family, education, and the way they need to be, and also the adaptations to the childhood wounding, which, and as I call it wounding, but the childhood where they didn't get their needs met, or it wasn't permission. You maybe come into a family where they were an artistic family, you were sporty, you weren't given permission to express your sport, or the other way around, or emotional areas of not allowed to dance on the table because you're an extrovert person, so you're always shut down, and then your adaptation is to become either outrageously inappropriate everywhere you go and jumping on tables everywhere, or you're hiding it under a bushel. So ultimately, people are living out of this script and their mind is in charge. So one of the things of the meditation practice is to recognize that yoga is mind-body union, and that ultimately this work that I teach people is essentially yoga, because it's about the union of your body and mind, and recognizing that there is your essence. You are not the body and mind, but we are on a vehicle, this amazing vehicle and this amazing tool. But that ultimately, if we know that the essence of us is there, and we get to the space of experiencing that awareness, maybe through some meditation practices, and then recognizing that, starting to challenge our paradigm, and the paradigm is the map I've just said about. Start to challenge what comes out of your mouth, other people's mouths. Start to challenge just normal, tried and tested beliefs that you think are the truth, and start to recognize that you can start to clear away the identification with the mind, because also the mind tends to act on its own. So meditation is about stilling the mind. The mind's job is to think. So the mind generally is quite active. And it's like we don't want our heart to stop beating and our heart's job is to beat. We don't want our liver to stop functioning, and our liver's function is to do its thing. And the mind's job is to think. So that's great. We don't necessarily want it to stop thinking, although ultimately it's good to get to a place where you can switch it on and switch it off. Really, the mind needs to be able to be switched off and switched on. However, one of the first things with really getting practice in being here and now is to recognize there's probably a thought stream going on all the time. And even if you can't stop it, at least start to watch it and recognize, if you're going down the street, are you just thinking? And actually see if you can come back to, that conscious breath, come back and have a gap, because there are gaps between thoughts, and it's finding the spaces in the thoughts that's the key. And when you recognize that there's the thoughts just doing its own thing, you can start to become the master of it. And this is the ultimate. We need to really be the master of our mind and our body, and then we're free, completely free. But if it's just taking off on its own, then we're not free, and it's exhausting. And people go to bed and they'll have had an upset in the day, and they'll go to bed, and I hear this so often, and they can't stop thinking about it, and they can't switch it off. And of course they can, but I have to teach them gently how to. Or they'll wake up at 4 in the morning and the thing's going on, and people have imaginary conversations in their head with people they've had an upset with, or they have imaginary conversations endlessly with all manner of people. So the first thing is to really, really get to the point where you go, let's at least listen and see if I'm doing any of those things, and recognize it doesn't serve you, and that we need to be deciding whether we think or don't think. And that ultimately, when there's space and we're not thinking, we can start to know ourselves. And I can't remember who said it now, somebody said know thyself, didn't they? Who said know thyself? No. Anyway.
Oracle of
Oracle of something.
Delphi.
Delphi, thank you, Jane. know thyself. And now part of the way of doing that, as you all know, what happens if we're just thinking a lot, and it's often related to something, you know, that's gone on in our life that day, in the past, something that might happen, there'll be a feeling in the body. Now, it can happen both ways. Someone can start to go, oh, he didn't do such and such, or she, and the feeling comes in the body. Or we get a sinking feeling in our body, or an upset feeling, or an anxious feeling. Then the stream of thought starts. And therefore, that is what is going on. I see it out in the world. Everybody's talking about mental health. Now, of course, we've always had mental health. We've always had physical health. We are responsible for both. But of course, ultimately, we need to be responsible, and we need to train our brain. I work with a lot of people who come in with all sorts of diagnoses of ADHD or anxiety or all this, and I say, yeah, we've still got to train your brain. And what we also need to do is heal the wound at the core, which is causing this. So then we can really get somewhere. So the wound, or the feeling of upset, coupled with the narrative, creates what I call loops and psychological dramas that just run and run and run, and people live in these psychological dramas. And of course, being able to be here now, back to presence, at least then we can start to know that there's a feeling in the body, press pause on the narrative, and at least if you can't press pause on the mind, that's where mantras are useful. Even I am where I am. I am where I am, it's okay, I am where I am. And there's a big prevalence of people feeling not good about themselves. So, and they start on again, they'll feel upset, they'll feel anxious, and then they'll start on a stream of negativity. So again, press pause, breathe in, I am who I am, it's enough. And those two mantras, they're so simple, but they're transformative if people do them. Now, with all these things, it is necessary to practice. Practice, practice, practice. Everything can be achieved by practice. That's Periandros. I can remember that Greek philosopher. But also, practice makes permanent. So we don't want to be practicing. The neural pathways, they used to think the neural pathways were set by 14, and therefore old-fashioned psychotherapy was very much around, oh God, you're like this because your mother did this, or your father, oh dear, oh well, and everybody came out of psychotherapy going, oh, I'm like this because I'm angry with my mother. But they now find, obviously, that you can retrain your neural pathways. And part of retraining your neural pathways is this meditation life, where we're here, we're present, we're aware when our mind is going off. And it takes practice, 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 and it's that willingness. And that's why joining together as a group is so powerful, because we can remember and be reminded and support and encourage each other, and recognize that the stiller we get, the more clear we get, it's wonderful, because the emptier we get, the fuller we are, because all of that distress, stress, endless chat, endless ruminations over past hurts, or immediate hurts, or whatever, they spoil our life. And they are what lots of people live in. People live in psychological dramas a lot of the time, but they spoil our life. And so, therefore, when we get emptier and we are able to press that pause button on the feeling, we're able to, the narrative, and we're able to breathe and clear the feeling out of our body, we start to empty out and empty the past. And actually then we get fuller and fuller and fuller. And of course, the whole universe is created out of nothing. It's endlessly creating. They say universe is a carrot, it's still going. And we are the universe, we are the creators, we are the created and the creators, and we have the potential to create anything we want. People often create in loops, but we, and recreate patterns and programs. We can create anything we want, and it is that everything comes out of nothing. And when we look at big trees in the parks, they've all come out of a seed. And when we crack a seed open, the seed has nothing in it. And so it is recognizing that we need to get to that place of no thing, the place of nothingness within ourselves. And it is recognizing that we need to do this daily, 24/7 actually, not daily, what am I thinking of? In every moment, every single moment, being aware if we react. One of the biggest ways that is an arrow to show we're not in the present moment is when we react. When we react, judge, project, they all kind of mingle up together. So we'll react to something small, say, you know, obviously people react to the big things, but somebody hasn't, you know, let us off the bus or is off the tube. You know, they what happens in the tube? We have to let people off, don't we? It's that way round. Therefore, forget which way. So we're on the tube, and
yeah,
we're on the
platform.
And
And
they've
people
got
on
you.
the platform, they have to let us get off first. Depends where you want to be.
I'm on the platform. So I'm on the platform, so I've got to wait.
Yeah.
I've got to wait for them all to get off the tube. So now
This metaphor's going really well.
I better be on the tube actually, because that's where I'd get annoyed, isn't it? If I were on the tube. I'm on the tube trying to get off. And they all get on. Then, or the escalator. You're going down and somebody's standing on the bit you're meant to walk down and run down. Anything like that. That. If you feel even a flash of irritation, that's for clearing. And that is an arrow to the past. So if you get really cross because someone's not let you off or on the tube or down the escalator, and you feel a crossness, and it always happens in the body, is an arrow to the part somewhere, some past hurt. I want to know what they're saying now. Yeah, it's an arrow to a past hurt. So that is the first port of call, and where you can start to practice meditation immediately by being mindful every single moment, whether you've reacted, and it's always to do with you if you've reacted. You might want to say to the people, excuse me, please let me off the tube, or is it the other way around? Or let me, you might want to say it. I'm not saying you wouldn't say something to somebody, but you don't say it out of crossness, you say it out of clarity, and then everything goes well. Everything goes well, always, always, always. And so I'm just thinking the reactivity, no, so that is the essence of it, because from reactivity, from the past stuff, comes projection. People are looking through the world through multiple filters of their upbringing or their beliefs or what's happened to them before. And so often, if somebody hasn't let you off the tube and they should have, and they've just barged on, then what can happen is there will be immediate projection and judgment. And actually, we don't know. They might not even know the rules. They might have come from Serbia. And I don't know whether they have tubes in Serbia. Do they? Do they have tubes in Serbia? Why don't they have tubes?
Tibet.
They might have come from Tibet. This is why I used to get into trouble at school. I remember Wendy and I once doing a presentation which we hadn't prepared for. We had to do this presentation, A-level English, and we hadn't prepared, had we? We winged it, but with a lot of potential giggling went on too. Anyway, yes, so that's the thing. Out of irritation often comes separation immediately. You feel the irritation, you project that they're rude, and you judge them, and immediately you're separated, and you're lost, because that's as we've said before, when we cut off love to another person, we've actually cut off love to ourselves, and so there's a big loss for us. So essentially, the biggest thing you can do is start to notice your reactivities, but also use the breath throughout the day, just because you might not be reactive, you might be having a lovely day of ease. But it's still important to every 20 minutes, but I don't know that people remember every 20 minutes, but just to take a big deep breath into the tummy. Oh, how am I moving? How am I breathing? How am I feeling? Bring yourself back into presence, and do that throughout the day, every day. And you're going to find that you're more and more present. You'll be aware, what's my mind doing? And it brings you back to ease and back to much more energy, because I've had clients half my age say to me they'd like my energy, and I say the energy comes from the source energy. It comes from the flow. It comes from not having the stress and the adrenaline. So now we're going to do action. I don't know what the time is. What time is it?
It is 7:23.
Oh, that's perfect. See, perfect. I pride myself on my perfect timing. So, what we're going to do is do some practices. So we're going to start off with Chakra breathing. I'm going to tell you the things we're going to do. And oh, by the way, no one has to do anything. You can sit and watch. You can wander about. You can lie down. You can enjoy the just the energy of being in the whole thing. So I never mind what people do. And but Kathy has to do the Chakra breathing. Other than that, do whatever you like.
This does it really well.
So we're going to do 10 minutes of Chakra breathing, and I won't make you do 20. I think I have made people do 20 before, but it's quite hard going. But the Chakra breathing is it comes from Japan. It comes from Zen. The Zen is again here and now, and then Buddhism got kind of mingled up with Zen, and then there's Japanese Zen Buddhism. So this is coming from the Chakra breathing comes from Japanese Buddhism. The Chakra is the seat of our power. It's here. It's just below the belly button. And in martial arts, it's where people are grounded and they ground in their energy. And weight training, all the things we do. It's really, we need to be here. And anything Jamie teaches, in your seat of your power. And the other reason the Chakra breath's good, it brings you into here, but it takes you out of your head, because the head, as we've said, can be all over the place. It also takes you out of your heart. And even though the heart is wonderful, but the heart's often got lots of filters. So even though people say follow your heart, not necessarily to be trusted, because it can be full of old patterns and old hurts and all sorts of things. So really, we need to bring ourselves out of the head, out of the heart, into the Chakra. And again, this breath, it's very powerful. You again don't have to do it too vigorously if it's uncomfortable. You can just think of bringing your energy into the belly and into the place. But in Japanese syllabary, the first sound is and the last sound is one. And the reason these are the first and last sounds in Japanese syllabary is that the is the baby being born, and then the is the death. It's our last breath. So it's the first breath and the last breath. I love the way. So the whole of life is contained in this breath. And officially, the in-breath is with the mouth open, and officially the out-breath is through your nose. It's quite hard through the nose, to be quite honest with you. So you'll be allowed to do it. Because I'm on the camera, I suppose I have to do it with my nose. It's harder. And it is very vigorous, brings you right into the Chakra. And so as you do it, and you might feel, what can happen is you feel a bit spinny outy here, which is quite good, because it kind of spins out, gets rid of all this stuff, get it out. But you get into the Chakra. You can do it sitting down, you can do it standing, you can do it lying down if you want. You can not do it at all, except for Kathy. We'll just be Kathy and me doing it. We did it on a beach in Spain.
We did.
So that's the Chakra breath, and what it can do as well, it grounds you, but there's any stuff in your body, any tension, stresses, stuffs, it can bring them up, out, so to be cleared. So the next thing we're going to do to clear them all out is the Kundalini shaking. And the Kundalini shaking, we got music to it, but you just shake about really. Do what you like. Shake it, it's fun. This room, we're used to doing a lot of shaking it, and we did a dynamic meditation here. So, and we jump around the room, use the whole room. And we did it on one of my workshops, didn't we? So that's 15 minutes. But that will shake everything out. Anything that stuff's come up, any stuff you don't need, basically, get it all out. And the Kundalini energy is an energy that's very powerful through the body. It comes up from the base of the spine and winds its way through our chakras, which we're coming on to next. And it's, but the actual meditation is Kundalini shaking, so it shakes it out. Then, to kind of ground and align, we're going to do some chakra chanting. Now, in the Vedas, in the Indian philosophy, the chakras are wheels that energy centers in our body that go all the way up through the body. And there are 144 chakras in the whole system, but these 7 are the ones that relate to physical and emotional aspects. And that's why it's really good to get them aligned and spinning correctly and clean and clear, and you feel better with a chakra chanting meditation. So a lot of you do know the chakra chants, but I'll still remind you. So the base chakra is related physically to the lower body, the lower back and the legs, and emotionally it's related to tribal survival. Anyone who knows Maslow's hierarchy, it's related similarly to this. So that is tribal survival, so that we can survive, basically. They all have colours. It's red in colour, and the sound is. So we'll all be doing that together, and you can always visualise the red if you want. And then the next one's the sacral chakra, which is the seat of creation. Physically, it's related to the testes, the gonads. Are they the same thing? Yes. I'm obsessed. I'm obviously obsessed with testes and gonads. I meant ovaries, but I got carried away with testes and gonads. Ovaries, and the sexual aspects. It's about creation from the emotion, our creativity in the world. Obviously, procreation as well. And that is orange in colour, and the sound is ooh. And then the next one is our solar plexus, which is our sense of self in the world, and it's our gut, and it's yellow in colour, and it's oh. Then we have the heart, and the heart is how we give and receive love, and it's the heart, obviously, physically, and it's green. And it's the bridge from these base chakras. Now the trouble is that in our world, a lot of people get very stuck in the base chakras because they're all about survival, getting relationships, and who they think they are. And they get very stuck there, and they get very much in fear. And I think that first began because probably we came into incarnation, and we had to survive, and it was probably very scary. And then people got, lost track of their spiritual aspect. But of course now we've got the luxury that we can actually move up into knowing who we truly are, and we can have the time, and we live long enough. We're not just surviving and dying. We're giving birth to about 12 children, and then that's it. We're here to be able to realise our true essence. And the heart chakra bridges between the base chakras and the chakras that are more about the realisation that we're spiritual beings on a human journey. So the heart sound it's green, and it's ah. And then we have the throat chakra, which is about intuition, communication. It's related to the throat and the thyroid. It's blue, and it's like a sheep. I'm not going to say a dying sheep. I always say dying sheep. A poor sheep. It doesn't have to be dying, does it? A sheep. It goes that doesn't sound like a dying sheep, does it? Live sheep. And then the next one is the third eye, which is related hormonally to the pineal gland, which controls all our hormones. It's indigo in colour, and it's about our insight. And the sound is and then we have the crown chakra, which is our divine connection to our own essence and all that is. And that's violet and white, and is there we are. I think a lot of you know those, but even so, it's nice to sit and just have a little bit longer sitting before we get into it. So we're going to do the Hava breathing first, and then kind of recover from that a bit. Then we'll get up and do the Kundalini shaking, and then we'll do the chakra chanting, and then it might be sometime. Experience your awareness. It's a mirror-like awareness that encompasses all things. You're resting in the center of this mirror-like awareness. Everything is a reflection of you. experience, stillness, the awareness. The body holds so much. The body cries the tears we don't. So often aches and pains and anything in the body is actually just often emotional stuff we haven't cleared out. So now we're just going to shake it all about when the music comes. I'm making the giggling part. Always remembering Namaste, that there's no separation, and that any time there is anything that arises in us, then it's an opportunity for clearing. And there is a lovely saying that basically says we keep wiping the dust from the mirror until we find there is no mirror. And so it is the act of clearing and being committed to honour the spirit in everybody, which is the spirit in us, and recognise there's no separation. That also it allows us to keep clearing and find that place of joy and be in joy, and therefore enjoying everything that we do.